So I've been thinking about how physical illness shows up in the body, and physical illness or dis-ease typically shows up in the body as a result of emotional, mental, energetic dis-ease. And when a cold happens in the body, sometimes it moves to different parts of the body. Sometimes you feel aches and pains in the muscles. Sometimes you feel congestion in the sinuses. For me, it's something congesty like going on in the throat area. And what I'm realizing is I wanted to spend some more time to really understand this cold. And I know that sounds strange, but like a lot of times when we have like illness or disease in our bodies, we just want to like get rid of it and eliminate it. But I really wanted to understand it, just to kind of be with it. Like, yes, it's annoying. Yes, it's keeping me awake at night. Yes, my sleep is all jacked up. Yes, my voice is going. Yes, my energy is really low. But I wanted to be able to understand this dis-ease, this cold. And I realized that right now it's kind of living in my throat area. And I thought about the chakra systems, and the Vishuddha chakra, which is the throat chakra, is the chakra that not only influences our vocal voice, but like the voice we use to speak outside of our bodies, but it also is the ruler of our internal voice, the voice that we use to speak to ourselves. So what I woke up with this morning was this thought, this notion of why, this part of me, the Vishuddha chakra or the throat chakra, is congested. Why is it compacted right now? Why is it struggling right now? And the first thing that came into my mind when I asked myself that question today was, how are you using your voice, Keyshawn? And not just how are you using your voice externally to motivate, inspire, empower others, but how are you using your voice to, talk to yourself? And so that brought me to this idea. And anytime that I jump on Instagram Live and it's not like scheduled, it's because I get an idea or a notion or something that kind of drops into my soul. What's up? That tells me I need to speak on this right now. And the way my creativity works is it comes in bursts. It comes in bursts, and the bursts are not always like consistent or scheduled. And I'm working on that for 2020, is to be able to harness my creativity, harness those creative bursts, find out what the pattern of them is, and work from a creative space in that way, as opposed to just like being kind of non-creative and the creative bursts, come and go and I can't really track them. So this morning, my creative burst came to me and said, I need to get on here to talk about what it means to have positive self-talk, what that actually means, what that actually looks like. And also to come from a place of vulnerability to say that I know that my outward voice is motivational, inspirational, empowering, conversational. It's when I speak to others, when I speak out, it's with the intention to empower, inspire, and positively impact the lives of other people. When I speak to myself, it doesn't always sound quite like that. When I speak to myself, a lot of times the voice that everyone else gets, for the most part, even my most assertive and firm voice, is a voice that's much gentler, kinder, and mindful than the voice that I use internally. And that's one of the big reasons that a lot of times people will hear me say, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself, whether you're in a yoga class and you're trying a new posture for the first time. Be gentle with yourself if you're incorporating a new self-care practice like meditation into your schedule. Be gentle with yourself if it's challenging for you to sit still. Be gentle with yourself if you're adopting a new, nutrition practice, if you're exploring fasting, if you're trying to drink more water. Be gentle with yourself as you're healing. In particular, be gentle with yourself if you're going through a divorce, if you're going through a breakup, if you're dealing with loss, if you're dealing with, disappointment, to be gentle with yourself. And when I say that, I'm not just saying it to like give you something to think about. I'm saying it because it's something I have to remind myself of every single day. Every day, I have to remind myself to be gentle with myself, because there is a fine line between positive self-talk that is intended to motivate and push you forward and encourage you. There is a positive self-talk that gets you out of bed when you don't really feel like it. There's a positive self-talk that, motivates you to go to the gym, that pushes you to do one more set or to do one more rep. There's a positive self-talk that motivates you to, finish the class, get the certification, get the degree. There's a positive self-talk that motivates you and pushes you forward to do pretty much anything you set your mind to. You got to talk yourself into it sometimes, and you have to talk yourself through it. What happens on the flip side of that, though, is there's self-talk that's not so positive. There's self-talk that can be discouraging. There's self-talk, things you say to yourself that can be discouraging, that can be belittling, that can be devaluing, that can be bullying. And we don't always recognize what our positive self-talk sounds like until we actually get still and quiet enough to really hear it. And that's one of the benefits of having a meditation practice. And a meditation practice can be something as simple as sitting still and breathing, literally. So when you get still and you listen to your self-talk and you ask yourself, am I being gentle with myself right now? Or am I trying to push myself beyond what I'm really capable of doing right now? Not even comfortable, but like capable of doing right now, because I'm so determined, or I'm so motivated, or I'm so attached to my goals that like by any means necessary, I'm going to get there. And while that's important to have motivation, that's important to have intention, that's important to have goals, and it's important to allow them to lead you and to guide you, it's also very important to be gentle with yourself in the process. And the reason that this came to me this morning is because, a couple days ago, like Saturday, my body decided to get sick. And I say decided because my body decided to get sick, which means that there was something else going on internally, energetically, emotionally, mentally, that got to a point where it was like, hey, we need to slow her down. We need to sit her down a little bit. We need to get her to go inward. We need to get her to pause for a little bit longer than she usually would. And the best way to do that is to get sick. And not that getting sick is like a fun thing. I definitely don't encourage it. It's not like exciting. But I don't know about you, but for me, whenever I get sick or whenever there's dis-ease in my body, everything else that I was like thinking about, planning on, participating in, trying to facilitate, kind of falls to the wayside. It doesn't disappear, but it falls to the wayside. And the reason that happens is because my first priority then becomes getting well. My first priority becomes getting my body back to a place where it's, in its best condition, so that I can do all these other things that I, want to participate in, facilitate, etc. So sometimes when you're sick, it's your body's way of letting you know that there's something else going on internally that needs your attention, no matter what the illness is. Louise Hay wrote a fantastic book called You Can Heal Your Life. And what I love about her book is that there's literally an index in the back of the book that has a list of different health issues, ailments, diseases, everything from, asthma to cancer, migraine headaches, kidney issues, whatever, 9 out of 10, any kind of like internal organ issues or whatever that you might be having, any type of viruses, any type of bacteria, can all be led back to a non-physical dis-ease, a spiritual dis-ease, an energetic dis-ease, a mental dis-ease, an emotional dis-ease, can all influence physical, sickness or illness in your body. And so what I realize is that anytime that my body gets sick, that it's like sending somebody like an urgent email, like when you get an email and the subject is like urgent and it's all capitals and it's got like 16 exclamation points behind it. Or when someone's blowing up your phone, they call you back to back to back to back to back. Or when someone keeps texting you over and over and over again. It's kind of like your body getting sick or your body feeling dis-ease is its way of getting your attention and letting your soul know, or letting your inner self know or your higher self know there's something else that we need to be looking at or something needs to be adjusted here because we can't keep moving forward in this particular way. So my experience has been for the last while, I would say at least the last 3 to 5 years, maybe longer than that, I have gotten sick right before Christmas. Consistently. And this being the end of the end of a decade, I'm like, okay, let's get rid of some of these motherfucking habits that no longer serve us. What can we do differently going into the new decade? And I was like, ooh, there it is, right on time, sick right before Christmas. So what can I do about it this time? And what I'm choosing to do this time is I'm really checking in with myself every day, asking myself, how do you feel today, Keyshawn? Do you feel like you can go to the gym today? Do you feel like you can get up and, do some work today? Do you feel like you need to rest today? What do you need? I'm asking myself those questions. And a lot of times we forego asking ourselves the support questions that we would ask other people. We don't ask ourselves. Some of us do, and some of us are in the practice of doing more so that it becomes just a part of our lifestyle. But a lot of people are not in the habit of asking themselves what they need. What do you need today? Like the people who may be watching this, asking yourself right now, what do I need today? What do I need today? Not what does my kid need? What does my partner need? What does my business need? What do my friends need? How can I show up for other people? No. Pausing for a moment and asking yourself, what do I need today, is also a way of you really identifying where you are, energetically, emotionally, spiritually, where you are, because you're not going to be in the same place every day, and different things are going to come up for you as you move through the week, as you move through the day, as you move through your life, and you're not necessarily going to need the same type of support from other people or yourself every single day. So it's important to check in with yourself enough to be able to know, oh, I probably need a little more of this and maybe a little less of that today so that I can be good, so I can be whole. Because as we, have heard tons of times, if your intention is to be of service to others in any way, then you have to be of service to yourself first. If your intention is to pour into others in any way, you have to pour into yourself first. You got to put on your own oxygen mask. Like, we've heard countless analogies for what it means to really take care of yourself first. So for me, the message that came to me this morning, my creative burst this morning, was about self-talk and being mindful of the voice that I'm using to talk to myself, and asking myself if the voice that I'm using to talk to myself is a voice that is encouraging, that is empowering, that is inspirational, that is gentle, that is compassionate, because as much as we want to believe that we can express sincere love and compassion for others without expressing sincere love and compassion for ourselves, it's really just a facade. We can't do it. You know what I mean? It's like we might be mimicking what we see other people doing. Like, oh, this is how you show love? Okay, yes, I will show love in this way, Or this is how you show support? Okay, yes, I will show support in this way. And sometimes we pick up habits from other people that are actually good habits, they're positive habits. Then there's some things we pick up that are not so good. And I know that for me, my self-talk, my internal voice, it sounds like a combination of a lot of other people's voices. And I don't know if that's the case for you. If you're watching this, I don't know if that's the case for you, but I would bet that for most people, that the voice inside your head, not the still small voice, not that soothing voice that you're like, yes, thank you. Not that voice. I'm talking about the other voice, the self-talk voice, the voice that's like, you ain't shit. Or you were supposed to do da-da-da-da-da and you didn't do it, or you ain't shit. You didn't finish that thing you said you were going to finish, or you ain't shit. That relationship didn't work out. Look at you. Or you ain't shit. Look, you gained weight. Your body ain't on point. You ain't shit. That you ain't shit voice. That's the one I'm talking about. Pretty sure we all have one. And it's just a matter of how loud the volume is on the you ain't shit voice versus you are the shit voice. And sometimes, depending on where you are in your life, at any given moment, your you ain't shit voice might be super, super loud. Like standing in front of the speaker at the club loud, where the shit vibrates your heart, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta turn this voice down because I'm about to fall apart if I don't, And then other times when you are the shit, voice is really loud. It feels more like being outside at a concert, and it's like, woo, it's loud, it feels great, wonderful, woo. Different sounds, different voices. And the reason I wanted to jump on here was to talk about what happens when the you ain't shit voice, the negative self-talk voice gets so loud that it drowns out the other one. And what are some things that you do, when that happens, and how does that feel, when that happens, and are you aware when it's happening? And if you are, what does that look like for you, So I'm gonna take a breath here for just a moment. Maybe that's all I have to say. Be mindful of the voice that you're using to talk to yourself. Because the voice that you're using to talk to yourself is often the voice that will come out when you feel like what's happening outside of you is not going quite the way you want it to, Be mindful of the voice that you use to talk to yourself, because you deserve just as much care, compassion, consideration, kindness, gentleness, empowerment, inspiration as others. You deserve that too. And sometimes we give our best to others and we leave the scraps for ourselves. We put our best foot forward for the world, and we kind of give ourselves the flim flam. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't necessarily take the best care of ourselves. And I think that self-care is a start to taking the best care of yourself, that you're allowed to take the best care of yourself. You have permission to take the best care of yourself. It's okay for you to take the best care of yourself. So I realized that I had to take a breath. I needed a moment to kind of like drink something because I was losing my voice. But I also wanted to say that the reason why I think it's important to check in with the way that you're speaking to yourself is because you'll be surprised at how hard you are on yourself. You'll be surprised at the kinds of things that you say to yourself in your head. You'll be surprised when you actually take a moment and think about what voice you're using when you're talking to yourself. And sometimes the voice that you're using when you're talking to yourself is the same voice that you use when you're talking to your kids. It's the same voice you use when you're talking to your partner, or your friends. And you don't necessarily realize that it's aggressive, it's abrasive, it's hard, it's mean, sometimes it's judgy, it's bullying, it's whatever, because you haven't necessarily spent enough time with yourself intentionally taking inventory and notice of how do I actually talk to myself and what does that actually sound like? Because it's it's easy for us to think like, yeah, I mean, when I motivate myself, I, tell myself you're good, you're great, you're wonderful. I read affirmations every morning, or I write them down, or I speak positive prayers over my life. And yeah, I'm always talking to myself in a really nice way. If that's you, fantastic, great. This message is not for you. If you're anything like me, the internal voice is aggressive as hell, is very assertive. My external voice is, when it comes to speaking to other people, especially doing, things like this, motivating people, is, you got this, you can do anything, the world's, at your fingertips, da 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 da. My internal voice often sounds like, why haven't you done more? My internal voice often sounds like, you could have done better. My internal voice often sounds like, you wasted a lot of time. It says things. My internal voice, the you ain't shit voice, not the you are the shit voice, but the you ain't shit voice. You ain't shit voice comes up when, I haven't completed something that I said I wanted to complete, or when I'm not making the progress on a particular project that I wanted to be making the progress on, or like we talked about a couple weeks ago when Tamara jumped on and we talked about taking one bite at a time. Sometimes my internal self-talking, you ain't shit voice is like, you ain't even finished your plate. Look, you still got stuff left on it. What are you doing? And I realized that my internal self-talk voice is a combination of things that I've, experienced myself, failures, things that other people have said to me, judgments and criticisms, and just imaginary bullshit that is based on me comparing myself to the world or other people, ridiculousness. So the negative self-talk voice, the you ain't shit voice, is often made up of a conglomerate of ingredients of several things. Like I said, for me, it's past experiences, failures, it's judgments and criticisms that come externally, and it's ridiculous expectations. And I am all for encouraging people to have very lofty, big, gigantic dreams for their lives, and to develop specific, intelligent goals and plans in order to manifest those dreams, and then to actually implement the goals and the plans in their daily life, doing one little thing, one step at a time, one bite at a time to get to those dreams. A big part of that is the way that we talk to ourselves. And I realized that whenever my voice is tripping, like it is now from having a cold, whenever my Vishuddha chakra is, clogged like it is right now, I spend a lot of more time thinking, more than usual, which is all the time. But I spend a lot more time thinking about what it is that I'm going to say before I say it. Like people say, like, think before you speak. Think before you speak is a powerful mantra because it gives us an opportunity to really consider the words that we are saying before we say them, to consider the intention before we speak. There's a saying that says, like, before you speak, let your words pass through, 3 gates. Is it necessary? Is it kind? And will it add value to the silence? If it's not all 3, don't say it. Is the advice or whatever. My practice for myself is to do the same when it comes to the words that I say to myself. Is to think and consider before I speak to myself. To ask myself, is it necessary? Is it truthful? Is it kind? Will it add value to the silence? And granted, there's not a lot of silence in my head. With the exception of, like, I guess when I'm meditating or when I'm sleeping, but then I dream, so it ain't really silent. I don't know if it's ever really silent in my head, to be honest. I don't know if it's ever really silent in anybody's head. So we'll talk about that some other time. But when I think about self-talk, I think about the voice that I'm using with myself. I am being more deliberate about correcting when the you ain't shit negative self-talk voice gets too loud, and not shaming it, not beating it into a corner, but just turning it down a little bit. Turn it down. Bring it down. Because the negative self-talk voice internally is just as real as the positive self-talk voice. The you ain't shit voice is just as real as the you are the shit voice. And depending on your experience and your judgments and criticisms and your expectations of ridiculousness or whatever that exists, your self-talk voices, yours might be louder. Your positive voice might be much louder. Your negative voice might be like, I ain't never got nothing to say. But when things happen in your life and you're in a place of self-assessment where you're looking at yourself and you're asking yourself, what can I be better about? What can I do more or less of? How can I show up for myself? Where do I need more support from myself? And being willing to explore that and ask yourself those questions is something that everybody is not necessarily willing to do on the same schedule. It's a big reason why a lot of people don't go to therapy. Because in therapy, that's all you do. It's not all you do, but a big part of what you do in therapy, when people talk about doing the work, when people talk about doing the work, they're talking about asking themselves those questions. They're talking about looking inward internally and identifying, clarifying, and assessing the internal parts of themselves, the voice inside their head, not like voices in your head. Different conversation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the voice in your head. And maybe it's not in your head. Maybe it's in your heart. Maybe you feel it in your toes. Maybe it's in your fingertips. Don't know. But your internal voice, the self-talking voice, the voice that you use when you're speaking to yourself, the voice that you use when you're like, Keyshawn, okay, so look, this is what we got to do today. We got to go to the gym. We got to finish this section of this work. We got to fold this laundry. We got to eat something. We got to call, home. We gotta, do this. We gotta do these things. And you wake up every day and you're like, I gotta do these things. You have goals, you have routines. Sometimes getting out of bed is the goal. Sometimes, eating is the goal. Sometimes drinking more water is the goal. Whatever your goals are, it doesn't really matter for this conversation. The internal voice that you're using to motivate and push yourself through those goals is what's important right now. That's what I'm talking about right now. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it today is because I realized that during this course of this cold, losing my voice or starting to lose my voice was like an alarm to kind of draw my attention and awareness to what my internal voice is sounding like. And realizing that my internal voice, she's a little aggressive. And she needs a hug. Somebody needs to hug her. Because my internal voice is kind of like a bully. And sometimes bullies, think that they're doing the best thing that they can to protect themselves or whatever. But sometimes bullies are the ones who need the most. They need the most love. They need the most, tenderness. And what I realize is that if you've been hard on yourself for a long time and you've seen like results of that, and maybe the results were like achieving certain goals, having certain accomplishments in your life, having certain, successes in your life. If you're like, well, damn, I wouldn't have, gotten that job or finished that degree or had that marriage or blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't have done those things if I wasn't hard on myself, if I wasn't pushing myself. And I'm a firm believer that you don't need to be pushed into doing anything. Guided is more effective, in my opinion. In my opinion, I would prefer guidance versus pushing. I don't want to be pushed. I don't want to be moved into things. I don't want somebody to, push me into doing anything. So why would I try to push myself into doing stuff? Why not just allow myself to be guided? Why not just allow things to happen in my life? Why not just allow myself to be in alignment with the things that I really want instead of trying to push myself into any particular thing? So to be aware and mindful of the voice that you're using when you're talking to yourself it's a foundational element of understanding how you need to be supported and how you move through the world. Because the way that you move through the world has a lot to do with the way you move inside. So because I need to take care of myself and because I need to be gentle with myself, I'm going to wrap this up. If you are just jumping on, I encourage you to go back and watch from the beginning because I think I had some important stuff to say. But in closing, I want to say, again, be gentle with yourself. Above all else, be gentle with yourself. Be aware of the voice that you're using when you're talking to yourself. Be aware if it's a you ain't shit voice or if it's a you are the shit voice. Be aware of the things that you're talking yourself into doing. And ask yourself, am I talking myself into doing this because I believe that by doing it, I am going to be better, do better, have better? Or am I talking myself into doing this because I hope that somebody else is going to be better, do better, or have better? Or am I talking myself into doing this because I feel like I'm supposed to do it or I'm obligated to do it? Because the further away that you get from doing things that you really want to do, that are really in alignment with you, that are really serving you, that are really adding value to your life, the further away from that you get onto the other end of the spectrum, which looks a lot more like obligation and have to, the more you're going to have to talk yourself into it and the harder you're going to have to push yourself to do it. And my intention, my encouragement is instead of trying to push yourself into doing things, ask yourself, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? And listen to the answer. And the more that you do this, you'll be able to decipher if the voice inside of you is like, oh man, I don't really feel like doing that. But you know that you really want, to do that thing. You really want the result of whatever it is. And for me right now, going to the gym, working out for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week is something that I really want to do. Like, I'm not doing it because it's a physical challenge or a fitness challenge. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to achieve a certain look. I'm doing it because I made a commitment to myself. And one of my intentions going into the new year is to keep my commitments to myself above all others. So for me, when I'm talking to myself to motivate and empower and inspire myself to go to the gym every day, I'm not using an abrasive voice. I'm not even using an assertive voice. I'm using an encouraging, celebrating voice. So to be mindful of the voice that you're using when you're talking to yourself, be mindful of the things that you're talking yourself into. Ask yourself why. And recognize that the more aware that you become of the voice that you're using when you're talking to yourself, the more aware you will be about the voice you're using to talk to others. That's all I got to say. Thanks for watching. Peace, y'all. Namaste.